Shoals Triple Threat Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Whittle, along with my co-host, Blake Prestige and David Hill. We're sponsored by Platinum Tier Events and Miami Ice, and we're excited to have in studio tonight, we have Lexington boys coach Hunter Killan, and we'll also be joined a little bit later with the head coach from Lauderdale County, Whitney Owens. We're in full effect in area play, guys, and we had some great games last week. Central, 2 big area wins, much to the dismay of my pick. But great basketball action to talk about, both boys and girls. What'd you see this week that you liked?
I thought that was a big one. The Central, just that area in general. There's still a lot to play out. I felt like going into last week, I felt like Central was kind of had went through a week where they just struggled, which just happens in the season, and then 2 huge wins, they're both huge rival wins now, and now they're in the driver's seat, going into this week. So we've talked about that area a lot, but it's got our area with the most Shoals area teams, and it's still a lot to be played for this week, though.
Blake said, I think maybe in episode 1, that Central would really have an effect on the outcome of the area. I actually disagreed with him. I thought Deshler and Brooks were just a little bit cut above them.
Yeah.
But now that they've played, I think you hit it spot on.
I've seen it too many times. Josh Bryant teams, they always compete. They always overachieve. And, now they're sitting in a position to where they beat Brooks this week. They're hosting the area tournament. I mean, assuming that they finish out and beat Hatton.
And that game's at home at Central.
That game's at Central.
We'll pick it later.
Yeah.
Two things, though, that I think about. They had who's going to be our player of the week coming later, who's completely out last year. And then we're sitting here last week, and Brooks is in the driver's seat, and, big streak, and had a good week. Lose a really tough one to a good Deshler team. And I don't know. That's what gives us gray hair or no hair in coaching basketball is you're on top, you're down at the bottom, you're back up top. Like the whole season is a roller coaster.
This is the time of the year, and I do not miss this about coaching. Coaches are having sleepless nights right now because they're trying to figure out what button to push.
Yeah.
To get their team to be playing the best they can play, because this is the time of the year you want to do it. We're getting to the thick of things here. We got county tournament week coming up, which I know we'll talk more about next week. But this is a crucial time, and there's a lot of sleepless nights. I've been there, so a lot to be decided.
It is. And we harp a lot on the 4A area, with Central Deshler, I think area 14. Brooks winning 7 in a row, going into the area matchup at home against Wilson. You kind of thought they'd walk through Wilson pretty well. And Wilson led them through 3 quarters.
Yeah.
It took a really, good fourth quarter for them to kind of pull away. I thought they were well prepared. And you kind of started seeing a little chinks in the armor of Brooks, and when games get a little tight, they had a big lead at Deshler. They gave it up, and it got down to 1 possession. When we talk later with Whitney Owens, we'll talk a little bit about their first matchup. That game was really close. In close games, they've shown that they don't always come through. So we'll talk a little bit about other areas, like when we talk about Lauderdale County and Colbert County matchup. It's one of our Game of the Week picks we'll get to later. But all these games are so important right now.
Yeah.
But the fact that Central could clinch the area this week is really surprising to me.
And listen, Wilson, staying on 4A, Wilson has the chance to play spoiler. All right. They still got to play Deshler twice. They have to play Brooks one more time. I don't know if that would be sort of bittersweet for Wilson if let's say they beat Brooks and Brooks beats Central. Well, now all of a sudden they've put Central as the area winner. I know that would be bittersweet for Wilson. But also looking at whoever gets that 1 seed in that area, that 1-4 game, playing the winner of the 4-5 game, it's not a gimme. It's not a gimme. So Wilson still has a lot to say about the outcome of that area, I think. I'm not saying that Wilson can't beat Brooks and they got to play Deshler twice. Do we have
Wilson Deshler this week?
Wilson and Deshler do play this week.
They still got 2 games, right?
Yeah.
and Brooks will make up a game they missed last week.
So what if
with
Wilson
Hatton.
goes in and knocks off Deshler James, which is not out of the rim, and then they end up in the 2-3, and then you could see Deshler end up at 4, who was the Final Four team and has a really good team. I mean, there's a lot. That's the thing is like it's not just a clear road. There's so many different tangible, like anybody could beat anybody in that area.
Well, Deshler owns the tiebreaker against Brooks, so they'll be pulling for Brooks to beat Central in that game coming up that we'll pick later on. But
also the 3A area, it's going to be decided this week as far as who's hosting what, and we've got some big matchups we'll look at later. But Lauderdale County and Colbert County playing at Colbert County. First time they played at Lauderdale County was a great game. Could have went either way. And also Rogers, not in the mix. Rogers still an outside chance Rogers could win that area. They'd need some luck and probably a coin flip, but they can definitely play spoiler. And I guarantee you, Coach Owens and Colbert County's coach are looking. They would really like to have that number 1 seed and not have to play Rogers in the first round, because that's not going to be an easy out.
Nuh-uh.
Definitely.
Well, before we get to Coach Killan, you want to go over some talking points and some highlights on the boys' side from this last week, David?
Loretto is still the real deal. They are undefeated.
I'm not going to say that Loretta's the best team in our coverage area, Jalen Chandler, but Loretta's pretty good.
You got to see him up close and personal, didn't you?
I did. I got to see them really up close and personal, and they are one of the more impressive teams I've seen, at least locally, in quite some time. They're
If
really
they face each other, though, Florence and Loretto.
Well, they don't.
Dun,
So
dun, dun.
I don't have to pick that
okay.
game.
Episode 3, he said he would never pick against Jalen Chandler.
And just recapping as well, we did point out the fact that Central beat Deshler, right? And Central, the row the boat student section, I just want to remind you that a Central jersey was thrown.
Hard.
It was thrown.
It's a hard throw.
There's a lot of velocity behind that jersey. In
Listen,
studio.
Blake had to duck.
According to the head coach who texted me, it was a toss. It was a toss.
Okay.
It was a throw.
And I've ironed
It
it.
was a
And I got it here. It's all ready for. Might have a little stain on it, but we'll get that figured out. But no, seriously, Central beating Deshler 2 times is significant. I mean,
it is.
I think the identity of Central, Deshler and Brooks are a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. You never know what you might get. When Brooks, to me, is at their best, I think they are clearly a better team than the other teams. But Central plays so hard. They never feel like they're out of it, and they play hard on both ends, and they really value the basketball and, play well together. I like their chemistry.
Yeah. No. What about Muscle Shoals? Got a big win against
Hartselle.
Hartselle.
Yep.
That sets them up in pretty good shape.
They got a big one this week against Athens. I think we'll talk about later, but I think
had nearly 5 guys. I think it was 4 to 5 guys in double figures. They really seem to be.
I think Muscle Shoals is the top team in their area. It's what it's looking like to me. So big things for them in the postseason coming up. Florence got beat by a very good Austin team. We knew that that was going to be a tough game. But again, Florence has a chance to rebound this week. They got James Clemens, which we'll talk about later. But Florence, they're just in a tough area. That 7A area, it's any night you go out, you got to bring it, and that's going to happen in that area. So I know Coach Burleson will have them regrouped and ready to attack this week.
Well, what about these Golden Bears? They got a big win against the Rattlers of Tanner.
They did. And we've got Coach Hunter Killan in the studio in here to talk about the Golden Bears. And first off, I just want to say, you inherited a really bad program. I mean, the guy that you took over the program from, it was just in shambles. So just talk. I'm kidding. I
felt like DeBoer taking over for Saban a little bit.
Yeah. Scott?
Listen, you beat Tanner in your last game at Tanner, but you dropped the game at Lexington. Talk about the matchup against Tanner, because I think Decatur Heritage it leads the way in your area currently.
Yeah,
so
really
it's really important that number 2 seed. But talk about the Tanner matchup.
Yeah, you can go back 90s, 2000s, and Lexington and Tanner have a history, especially when we're in the same area, and it's always back and forth. They came to Lexington earlier in the year, and when we dropped that one, it was a back and forth game. We didn't play real clean. We had 19 turnovers, missed several shots at the rim. We shot 55% from the free throw line, and we ended up losing by 5. So we knew if we went over there and played a cleaner game, we'd have a much better chance of winning the game. And we did that. We played more zone the second time we played them, and it really gave them some issues. And to be able to win that one was definitely big for us.
What's the goal, Coach, in your first year? What's the goal as we're right here in the thick of January? What's the goal for your team down the stretch to get them to perform at the highest level?
Well, like y'all have been saying on your show all year, it comes down to who's playing the best ball in February.
Yep.
It comes down to February the 3rd when we play likely Tanner again. We know that all year we play a tough schedule in our 2A schedule. We play several 4A teams, 3A teams, especially in our county. We're the second smallest school in the county, yet we still try to play everyone in the county, and that really challenges us. So you really learn your weaknesses, and you try to grow for those, and hopefully you are at your best on February the 3rd.
Who do you feel like are some guys playing really well for you this year? Who are some people that you feel like are kind of key cogs? Or
Well, a kid that you're very familiar with, coaching him since he was a freshman, is Noah LeMay.
yeah,
He's playing really well. A couple of games ago, he had 31 points, and then he followed that up with, I believe, 18 and then 28. So he's really shooting the ball well right now. Really proud of him. He's a senior that's definitely played the most basketball for all of our guys. Another guy is Tate Gamble. He's our point guard. And Tate, he rolled his ankle the last football game of the year, so we're trying to get him back healthy. And I feel like we're finally getting the 100% Tate that we've been wanting all year. He's playing extremely well. Going back to that Tanner game, he definitely led the way for us. He had 18 points, probably 12 assists. Definitely took over that game. Really proud of Tate, another kid that played last year for Coach. Another senior we got is Cam Butler. He's definitely that. He starts for us, and he's played several games last year. He's played a much bigger role this year. He's kind of that hard hat guy that you hear Nate Oates talking about a lot in his program. He's diving after the floor for loose balls, rebounds well, really smart, really good kid. Will White, he's another starter for us. He's a junior. He's been playing extremely well. He's averaging around 13 points, 7 rebounds right now. Another kid that's played a lot of varsity basketball. And then a fifth starter for us is Brody Killan, who's actually my brother. It's really, really cool to get to coach him this year. He took a year off last year, and getting him back and playing well is definitely something that we've been wanting out of him. He's averaging right at 6 points a game. Another just kid that you really enjoy having on your team.
Coach, what would you say the differences is? You've got to, work and coach and be around David Hill, our co-host, and what would you say you learned from him that maybe you've applied, and what are some things maybe that you did differently or better?
I played for Coach. I believe it was his first coaching job he had.
Yeah.
I was an 8th grader. So he coached me in the 8th grade, and then as I moved up into JV and in varsity, he was an assistant. And as I graduated and came back, Coach was coaching the girls then, and he took the boys' job for moving from the girls, the same move I just made. I was his assistant for 2 years before taking the girls' job eventually. I learned, I essentially could say everything from playing with him to coaching under him. I think as times have changed, though, I've kind of made my own philosophies on how I want to coach and make my own style out of it. But I can credit almost everything I know about basketball from the coaching world to Coach Hill for sure.
Coach, I actually have 2 questions I want to ask you right here. First of all, your father-in-law is Coach Dwayne Keener, who coached for years at Central. I played when he coached at Central, and I have a ton of respect for him, think the world of him. But you've got a father-in-law that's got a lot of experience doing what you're doing. I'm just curious, how do you guys talk a lot about basketball? Do you lean on him for advice a lot? What's that relationship like?
I do. Like you said, he coached probably 15 years as a head coach, if I had to guess, all at Central, and having him as a reference for sure is definitely something I lean on. I ask him
Right.
questions all the time about, have you ever dealt with a situation like this?
Right.
And kind of got his feedback from there. And I have a feeling with baby one coming up, I believe he'll get back into coaching eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Hope he does anyway. That'd be really fun.
It's definitely a good resource to have. My second question, you guys got Lindsay Lane coming up, big area game. I know you're focused on that. But Friday night, you got the Lauderdale County Tigers coming in. And I know we talked a lot about the Central and Wilson rivalry. We have great rivalries in our county. And, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I didn't realize that Lexington-Lauderdale County rivalry, how intense it was until I married into it. And it is an intense rivalry. Talk about that rivalry and just how important that game will be, because I'm going to tell you right now, and Coach Owens will say the same thing, like you can throw the record books out when those two play.
Yeah, I think y'all planned this, having me and Coach Owens on the same night.
No, we wouldn't do anything like that. Never,
No, I
never.
don't think you would.
It's sort of like when two boxers, or I guess MMA is popular now, are going to fight. We get them like nose to nose. We were kind of hoping for something like that.
Yeah.
Ratings
But-
push.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it would definitely help our rivalry if we could win one. We haven't won one in several years. I couldn't tell you the last time we won one. So it's definitely a fun rivalry. There's been some good ones over the years. Hopefully we can get a little more competitive and make it more of a rivalry.
This one's in the den though at home, right? You play.
It is.
It's
It
at home.
is.
It's at home. And we're having TVBA night. So hopefully have a big crowd.
All the kids, all the community will be there.
We won't
Absolutely.
touch on what the admission price will be. We'll leave that for another time.
$10.
But so you play Lindsay Lane. You've already beaten once, and then you're playing those teams in that area we talked about. You're going to play Wilson and Central after that. We don't want to look too far ahead, but like you find these games out of area, and most of the time you're going to be going up in class to play those games. What do you value in getting to play those type of games, as you get ready for that February matchup when you might play Tanner?
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, we don't play Waterloo, so every team that we play in the county is bigger than us. And like y'all mentioned before, basketball is really, really good right now in this area, especially in the county. So we know that when we play those teams that they're going to expose some weaknesses that we have. That will hopefully prepare us for teams like Lindsay Lane and Tanner and Decatur Heritage. And we actually went over to Lindsay Lane earlier in the year, our first area game, and we didn't have Tate. Tate wasn't with us that night. Will and Noah were both in foul trouble, so we really had to find a way to win that game without essentially our three leading scorers. And we ended up pulling it out at the end. But I think playing those tougher schedule games helps you for moments like that.
Yeah, that will be a huge one to get you in that 2-3 spot.
Yep.
And then a big game Friday night. It'll be a big crowd and be fun to watch. And before you know it, we'll turn around and it'll be February. Maybe a snowstorm. Then we're right back in the middle of it.
Well, the county tournament's coming up, so that definitely means snow's coming.
It's funny how that
every
works,
year.
isn't it? Yes.
I think it was about a year ago to the date that we were missing games last year.
I know.
So
Talk a lot about that one, Coach Pressage. How
Do what now?
the schedule changes with the county tournament, how much fun that was for you guys.
That definitely was not very much fun. But it happens.
Yeah.
It happens every year, and you just have to adapt and adapt
remind
and do
me,
the best you
who
can.
you guys have in that opening round in the county tournament?
Wilson.
Wilson. Okay, so you technically play Wilson a couple times in that
Right.
same week. So, listen, we really appreciate you coming. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you want to say to him, or he was really talking highly of you, and
No,
learned
I'm really
everything
proud
from
of
you.
Hunter and proud of the job he's done, and from the girls' side to the boys' side, and excited to watch him grow the program. And he's always done a really good job, and was fun to coach. And I think was even he was our manager when I was playing. So it's kind of, you get to see all that progression, and it's fun. That's why you coach. And those are the things that you look for and that you enjoy, seeing guys that you coach and seeing girls that you coach as they either A, get back in it, or B, you're seeing them get married or have their kids. And ultimately the wins and losses are a big deal. But those relationships and seeing them grow into women or young girls to women and young men to men. That's ultimately the most fun part of the coaching cycle, and especially at the level we're at. You're not going to see a lot that go Division I or go NBA or WNBA. So that's where you see the fun stuff. And that even the ones that do go that far, that's still the fun stuff you see is when they go from what you remember seeing them like as they were a teenager to they're going into a young man and woman. That's the cool part. Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately the funnest part in coaching to me.
Coach, was it 2015? The last time Lexington went to the regional tournament? Uh-huh. 2015, the last time you guys went to a regional tournament. And I'm rooting for you guys. I think you guys get back this year, so best of luck to you.
Appreciate it.
And we appreciate you being on.
Yeah,
and,
thank you so much. Without your participation and all the coaches in our coverage area, what we do, we couldn't do what we do. And we definitely appreciate you taking the time out to come on. And best of luck in your game on Tuesday night against Lindsay Lane, and again when you host Lauderdale County on Friday. Coach Hunter Killan from Lexington. We're happy to be joined now by Lauderdale County boys coach Whitney Owens. They've had a good start to the season. I think you guys are just a little over 500 right now with some really difficult opponents that you played. I've got to see you guys in person a few times. Really impressed with your team so far, a young team who lost an important senior. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here and appreciate what you guys are doing, the coverage you are providing with basketball in the area. You're doing a great job.
Scott, you talked about them losing a senior, Samuel Adams, early on in the year, and I know that had to be crushing to the program. But your guys seem like they've responded well. Scott mentioned y'all are young, very young, but talented. Just talk about some of those young guys that have stepped up and been a difference for you guys this year.
You don't want to start out the year. That was the first game of the year, and he was our leader, our only senior, and it was tough. The tough part about it was, we had the guys were young and they were all looking around. It was just like in that moment, everybody was just like in shock. Mm-hmm. And then, we got through that night, and then the next day in practice, it was like one of the worst practices I've ever been a part of. And you didn't know what to do. And finally, we got together, and I just kind of looked at the guys, and I was like, look, this is tough. And I told them, I was like, but you guys have got to figure out that, you guys are still getting to play basketball. Our senior, our leader, his season's done. So it's not about us right now. Think about him and think about what he's going to have to sit. He can't play his whole senior year. He doesn't play anything else. So you're going to have to move past this. You're going to have to find some toughness. We'll be fine. You're just going to have to figure out, Sam's losing a whole year. You guys are getting to play tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. So let's get better. Let's work hard. We'll get better throughout the year. And it's kind of, you don't want to have a rally cry after game one, but kind of the guys just kind of pulled, kind of like, all right. And we just kind of, we've been figuring it out. I mean, they're young, but their competitive spirit is it's hard to match. I mean, they play hard, they compete. I mean, it's just, we're starting 3 ninth graders. We got Jaden, Cayden, and Easton. But, Calvin kind of became the go-to guy. Mm-hmm. And he's a guy that he's really good off the bounce, and he's played well. He's leading us in scoring, and then the May kid, Connor May, he's another solid player. But the guys they've just kind of rallied together, and we played a tough schedule. And Scott you were there early in the year when we played Brooks. We were coming off a couple of tough losses, but that game when we pulled it out in the end, you could just see the confidence just grow after that game. And so I'm proud of the guys. They compete every night, and I really think we're getting better, and just looking forward to kind of hoping we finish out the year on a run.
And you talk about the youth of your team. You had a 9th grader, step up the other night with 29 points against Clements. Talk about Cayden and how he's grown into a role to kind of be that maybe secondary scorer to Calvin Watkins.
Cayden is I call him, he's just a bulldog. I mean, he's I don't know. I'll give him 5'7". That's generous. But he plays like he's 6'3". he's gonna catch everybody's, usually either everybody's best guard or their secondary guard, and he's just gonna fight. He's gonna fight you. He's gonna get in and mix it up, and he's shooting the ball really well right now. He hit 8 threes the other night. I knew he got hot, and then I got home and looked at the book, and I text my assistants. I was like, Cayden hit 8 threes tonight, and they were both like, wow. He's so competitive, and the identity of our team kind of took from when Sam went down. Those young guys, they're so just competitive. I mean, and they all just kind of rallied together, and it's contagious. You know how contagious it is that when one guy's out there diving on the floor and just competing his tail off, they all just kind of now they all do it. And Cayden is one of those. I can depend on Cayden to just do the dirty work every night. And now when he's shooting it really well, it's an added bonus.
You had an older team last year. What are some of the differences you see through having a younger team and having an older team as far as and all that? Depends on personalities and all. But what are some differences that you see in having a younger group versus having a more experienced group like you had with Miles and some other seniors that have played a lot of minutes for you over the past few years? And not necessarily a comparison of trying to make you, well, what do you like about this group or that group better? But what's the differences you notice in a young group and an older group as you practice in their competitive spirit and different things? What are some things you see the difference of?
I've been truly blessed. The first 4 years we've had a lot of good senior groups that were just leaders. You could walk in the gym and that they may start practice without me saying anything.
Yeah.
But the group I had last year and the year before that, they were a unique group. And we always kind of poked fun at them because they were like a bunch of old men.
Yeah.
And they'd been in the program forever, but they're like old men. They sat in there, they'd sit in the locker room, and, they might not even be talking to each other. It's kind of like an old man sitting around at the barbershop or something.
Yeah.
But this group, you go in there, and they're just, you can tell they're young.
Right.
They're cutting up. They're having a good time, and we're all just, and it's just, you love both sides. And I told the guys this year when we came in, I was like, guys, one thing I want to look in here is locker room. I want you guys having fun. I want you cutting up. I want you being loose. And I don't have to ask them. They're cutting up and having fun. But when we get out to practice, they compete.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like but it's not like a cut and dry. We have a JV team, we have a varsity team, but they're all pretty much the same age.
Right.
So we have the practices are good. They're competitive. And it's just a different kind of scene in the gym now because they're so young, but they have fun and they're really competitive. And I'm enjoying them every day.
Yeah,
it's almost like a double-edged sword when you've got a young team, because sometimes those older teams, those teams that are full of juniors and seniors, when they get to a big moment, they realize it's a big moment. And sometimes they don't perform at the highest level. But having a young team like that, because I've been in that same boat, they don't realize they don't know that they're not supposed to be in that moment, And I sort of saw that the other night watching you guys play Loretto. Early in that game, I mean, for the whole entire game, y'all competed. They competed their tails off, and early on it was competitive. And I'm sitting over there thinking, do these freshmen not realize they're playing one of the top teams, you know, in the state of Tennessee here? Now, obviously, Loretto took care of business because we talked about they're on a different level. But sort of talking about, going off what David just said right there, the differences in an old team and a young team, I see that I've watched this team a lot, and I see that in your team. Almost just sort of there's a quiet confidence. Do you agree with that?
I do. And just a point on yours, I think we were playing Rogers right before Christmas, and it was a big moment. I think Jaden got fouled up. We were up 1, and Jaden got fouled at the time and went to the line and just stepped up there and hit 2 free throws. 8th grader stepping the line inside of 10 seconds. And after the game, I kind of came up and patted him on the back. I was like, man, that's big. That's a big moment right there. And he just, he's an 8th grader. He's like, I've been practicing, coach. Just lightly. I mean, that's just what they are. They show up to play and just compete.
But he's an 8th grader, but now he's a special.
He is
8th grader. He's got a high ceiling.
He does,
and I know you don't like to make, coaches never like to make comparisons as far as this kid could be this, but he could end up being very special.
And he's, another thing I'll say I like about this group is they live in the gym right now, all of them, and they go up there together. I think your stepson's there with him a lot. We've got a lot of guys that just love basketball right now, and they've kind of all just they're there. When I get there, they're shooting, and they're there on the weekends. And there's no substitute for getting in the gym and just working. And
What's
that's what
also
all
the
I'm
fun
doing.
part before they get their license?
It is. You're right.
You always notice when license and girlfriends start entering in the picture. A lot of those young ones, man, that's
True.
that's
Things
the way
change.
out of the house. We can all go play. We can all go work at it.
And that goes back to having an older veteran team and a younger
Yes,
team. I mean,
yes.
there's positives to having a younger team. There are.
There is.
Another young guy I thought in the Carver County game, if you want to talk about that's really stepped up and having a solid year, Easton Hamill. We haven't talked about him on the show. He's having a solid year for you guys, though.
He is a rebounding machine right now, and he hangs around that paint. It's kind of a different role than he's used to because he's always been on the wing growing up. But he has turned into a banger, and he'll jump in there and he'll mix it up. But he's probably leading us. He's probably close to leading us in rebounds, and but he's playing well, and he's finishing well, and just the minutes he's providing are a bonus. I mean, they're big.
And you guys will play Colbert County. They beat you 57-52 in the first matchup. I think you'll travel to Leeton
Yes,
for this
we are
game.
going
and,
to.
It's a big one because it'll tie you guys for first place in the area. So what did you learn from that loss at home that maybe you can take away and get a different outcome this time? I know Black Taylor's had a big season for the Indians so far this year. Black
is he's special. I mean, you don't have to watch a lot of film to see he's special. It's like when I was talking to some of the guys, and they were referencing Black, but I kind of made reference to the other guys, and we did a okay job on Black. I mean, we made him work for everything. I think he still got 18 on us, but they had 3 other guys that I think combined for 8 threes against us, and so if we can do a better job on the others, I think we'll have a good shot. Because I think Black's going to be one of those guys that if he's on the court, he's good for 15 or 20. I just think he's that guy. You just hope he doesn't get 30. I mean, but I think he has a lot of guys around him, and when they're hitting shots, they're tough. And I know it's going to be a battle when we go to Colbert County, but I think the guys will be up for it. I think we'll play a little better and defend a little better on the other ones, and hopefully it'll give us a chance to get a win and stay in a tie, hopefully. But big one on Tuesday night, too, before we get to that one. So we play Rogers on Tuesday. So
You got Rogers this week, area game, big game. Colbert County this week, big game, area game. Lexington this week, it might as well be an area game because they don't want to lose to neither one of those teams, the schools want to lose to each other. With your young team, are you going to do anything different this week to sort of try to keep them? Because it's a big week. Are you going to do anything to try to keep them focused, or is just going to be treated as any other week?
I think we're going any other week. We haven't talked. We talked through the schedule today, but it was just like today and tomorrow is all about Rogers. Then we'll go in and we'll prepare for Colbert County on Wednesday, and then we'll have our normal shoot around Friday morning where we'll talk about Lexington. And so it's just it'll be a normal week. I mean, it's this time of year where practice is not frequent, and there's a lot of playing going on. So right by now, I mean, if you should, I hope we know what we're doing. And we should kind of fine tune things daily, but you got to play your best in the game right now, and that's what it's about this time of year.
Yep. Earlier you talked about seeing some confidence grow in some of the young players on your team. Was it the Brooks game that kind of was a turning point for you after losing a couple of games? I mean, you lost to Brewer. They're a good 5A team. But was it that game, or was it another time in particular that you could identify that you kind of saw it? Because I saw confidence growing in them as the game progressed and it was close. And then when they had the lead, I saw a confidence in some of the young players on the team that, hey, we can not only compete with them, we can beat them.
Mm-hmm. I think, honestly, it really started, we were over in Priceville at a Thanksgiving Classic, and we were playing Brewer, and they were killing us. And they're solid. They're good. They're big boy in us, and we were down 16-2 at the time. And we fought back, and we got it to 8 in the fourth quarter. And that was one of those nights. I think it was our fourth game, but everybody played well. in the second half. Even we had guys off our bench players came off. We get good minutes out of Ty Sharpley that night, who's come off the bench and really helped us some. The other two guys off the bench with Siler and Brady kind of came in and actually scored a bucket or two and just helped. But we got it to 8. We didn't finish it, but then we come back in the next game and at Brooks, and then we played it in the fourth quarter and finished it out that night. And it was just like a confidence booster. But it goes some nights, and the next week we come and Brooks, I think 2 weeks later they got us. So it's a flip, but it did. That was a confidence booster for us, and you could tell the guys really, caught another gear after we won that one.
And I know we're running out of time here, but I'd be remiss not to ask you, would you say that this year's Lauderdale County tournament is one of the best as far as teams top to bottom go? Because you guys have had a lot of success in the Lauderdale County tournament over the recent years. Would you say this is a pretty wide open tournament?
I think so. There are so many solid teams this year. You could, I think there's 6-7 teams that could win it. I mean, legit could get hot that week and win it. It's going to be a fun tournament. It's a fun week.
Well, we're talking to Scott Jones next week when we preview the Lauderdale County tournament. He'll be our guest in studio, and you guys have that rubber match with Brooks in the opening round there on Brooks' floor. So we wish you guys the best of luck the rest of the year in your 2 area games this week, and of course in the big matchup on Friday night when you guys play Lexington. But Coach Whitney Owens, we really appreciate you joining us tonight.
I appreciate it.
At this time, we're going to get our Week 8 Boys Miami Ice Player of the Week. It's a Central Wildcat, and it's Bryant Hamback, who's having a really good season. 2 big area wins this week against Wilson and Deshler to take a commanding lead in the area. And let's get Bryant on the phone and chat with him. We're happy to be joined now by our Week 8 Miami Ice Player of the Week. It's Central forward Bryant Hamback. Bryant, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Bryant, you've had a great season. You've been on the cusp of being our Player of the Week a couple of weeks, where we went with other guys, but you were a clear-cut pick this week. Talk about the week you had and the 2 big games, both area wins against Wilson, and then, of course, the big win the other night against Deshler.
Well, I mean, I just knew going into those games, there were 2 big area wins, and, if we don't win those, then we could be playing on the road in the area. And we want to host, so.
And you have a chance to host, I believe, if you guys take care of business this week. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What has Coach Bryant been saying to you guys, to kind of maybe not kind of get you too far ahead and maybe reel you in on staying in the moment and how important these games are? What's he been saying and how have things been going in practice?
He's just telling us to work hard every single day in practice and just take one game at a time. Because in this good of an area, that every game matters.
Hey, Bryant, Blake Prestige here. We appreciate you being on. Bryant, one thing that I've noticed about you, first of all, I love watching you play basketball. I love watching you play football. I love watching you play any sport, really. You have such a competitive spirit, and I've actually picked you guys twice this year, and I've referenced you being such a competitor. It just, it just oozes out of you on the floor. Is that something you've always had, or is it something you've just picked up? Talk about where that comes from.
Well, thank you. And, I really just want to win. It's always kind of been like that. That's how my dad raised me. I don't like losing. That's just the kind of person I am.
Right. And you seem like you're that. Are you that way, as far as outside of athletics? Are you competitive in everything you do in life?
Yes, sir. If we're playing a board game, if we're doing anything else, I want to win. I want to beat you.
Absolutely.
Hey, Bryant, this is David Hill. I really enjoyed watching you play this year. You had a season-ending injury before the season even started last year, correct?
Yes, sir.
What did you notice? You had a year removed, but what were still very vocal and locked in on the bench. What were some things you noticed as your year off that's kind of maybe parlayed or led to your success this year as well, or maybe some things you might have taken for granted?
I mean, to be honest with you, the thing that I noticed most was like practice. I mean, sometimes people don't want to practice and everything, and I mean, I missed that. Like, I missed every part of playing the game. Like,
right.
So, I mean, even in practice, just going as hard as you can. I mean, you don't know when your season could end.
Yeah. What is your funniest Coach Bryant story?
Oh gosh!
Now, don't get him in trouble now. It's got. What's maybe the funniest thing maybe it could be a celebration after beating Deshler or beating Wilson, or I don't know. What's I
think the funniest thing he does after that, maybe after we win, is if during that game he's just stomping on the ground and everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody says it, but it's pretty fun. If you win, if you don't, then it cannot be very.
I got you.
So Brian, we know you guys have a big home game coming up this week against the Brooks Line, and let me ask you this: I haven't decided who I'm going to pick yet. Is that Central student section going to be rocking Tuesday night?
Oh, they're going to be rocking. I promise you that.
Okay. And also one more question: did you watch last week's episode, and did you see Coach Scott Whittle throw the Central jersey across the studio here?
I watched part of it, but I did not see that. I watched the beginning of it, but
then it didn't happen. If you didn't see it, it didn't happen, okay? Because I'm going to tell you.
I'm going to have to go back and see that.
Oh, buddy. It did not have a number 14 on it. I wouldn't show that kind of disrespect to our player of the week. But you talked about loving to win. I hate losing more than I like winning, and I picked against you, and I haven't decided on my pick yet. But I'm becoming a believer. You know, you can't see on the air right now, but I've got my Central Wildcats colored shoelaces on my Travis Scott. So like I'm representing you. You're making me a believer steadfastly. But you know, what is it about the matchup against Brooks that you guys feel like you might have struggled? Because last week we had Brooks head coach on the air, and he talked about how his team tends to struggle against Deshler, something that you guys haven't done, beating them twice already this season. What do you see, or is there anything you can pinpoint on maybe that you play a little tighter in that game? What can you talk about that?
I think that we did play a little bit more nervous that game, I guess, but we just didn't play the defense that we had been playing earlier in the season and now that game. I mean, we kind of let them go to the goal, and after watching film, we realized that, and we're just going to have to work really hard on defense to stop them because they are a great team.
They are, and listen, knowing that you could clinch the area and achieve one of your goals, which I assume you have several, but one of them is to not only, win the area, but to certainly host the area, and how important it is to in this really competitive area that we're in. Do you think that's going to bring the nerves in a little more, or a little bit more excitement, knowing that you're at home, you're going to have that, ruckus crowd right there, rowing the boat for you from the student section? Does it give you more confidence, or you think you guys are still going to be a little tight, given that Brooks, had a pretty convincing win against you guys?
I think it's going to give us more confidence, especially knowing that we lost to them last time and we didn't play like the team that we are. And I think it's just going to be exciting now.
That'll be one of our game of the weeks that we'll pick later on. David, you got anything else for Bryant before we let him go?
No, I've enjoyed watching you play. I think for as long as I've coached, it seems like there's been a hand back playing for Central, and all of you have been competitors and played the game the right way. And congratulations on being the player of the week. And I think it's very well deserved, and congratulations on the great season that you're having.
Yes,
thank you. And I'm the last handbag, so.
Brian, same goes for me. I love watching you play, love watching you compete. Best of luck to you down the home stretch of the season here, and excited to see what you guys can do.
All right, thank you.
That was Bryant Hamback, our Week 8 Player of the Week. And Bryant, before you hang up, don't waste your time going back and looking at old episodes. Let's just focus on the Brooks lines. There's no need to waste your time there. You've had plenty of time off. You guys will be back in school tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So just focus on the week ahead. But again, thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate you. And we wish you the best of luck, both to you individually and your team going forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That was Bryant Hamback, he's been a big part of what
huge
they've been able to do.
Yes.
I like the makeup of their team, but he's the alpha guy on that team that's been able to get the job done.
Yeah.
In crucial games, the important games, and I wouldn't expect anything less.
And I'm going to say this
Tuesday.
about Central. I think one underrated aspect of Central as a team is their physicality. Mm-hmm. You got him, the Brewer kid.
He's played really well.
They are physical, super physical. And I definitely give them, I'm going to give Coach Mertz and Brooks some bulletin board material here. But we talk about that Brooks matchup, and I know we'll get into later. I definitely give Central the physicality edge. I saw Central live playing Lauderdale County, and that was the difference in that game. We talked about the youth from Lauderdale County. It was the physicality. They're a veteran team. It shows they've been in the weight room, and I think that is definitely a huge plus for Central down the stretch.
Well, I think, too, talking about him being out, but also talking about just the competitive spirit that he has, and that's, when you throw that back in there and throw your leader back in there, which he is for this team, you take away him this year. I mean, they're completely different. Mm-hmm. And we see that all throughout. Like, we're not hiding 4 and 5 stars on the bench. The ones you got, especially your smaller county schools, that's who you got. And it just shows the importance of having each important player and that can fulfill the role. And he's definitely just been a huge difference maker for them this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we had something called preseason picks, say, for the area, I don't think it would be a surprise if both Deshler and Brooks were the two teams that we thought would be at the top. And here we are looking at Central with a chance to clinch it. And I think a large part, as you mentioned, David, it's been the play of Bryant Hamback kind of leading that way. So thanks again to him for joining us. And, we look forward to some of these big games, and we'll pick some of those. And we're going to talk a little girls hoops coming up, and we're going to get Deshler head coach Jana Killan on the phone next. When we were done, I think it went to about the end, the time. I didn't hear a buzzer, but I looked up and I couldn't see any orange.
I turned the buzzer off.
Yeah, that's cool. I noticed I looked up about the time we were done, and we were – now, before we call Jana, because obviously we hadn't even talked to any girls, what do you want to do? Do you want to go through the little stat stuffer sheet kind of deal? Or
Yeah, we can talk some girls.
I mean,
What do you want to wrap up with boys?
okay, what?
Like with the stat
picks, you
sheet
mean?
stuffers?
Oh,
And then,
yeah, we didn't do those. Dadgummit.
You want to
bad.
do those?
Well, we can do it after the girls' calls.
I can edit that back in.
Let's just do it after the girls' call. And
The girls' talking points.
Well,
We need to do the girls' talking points before we talk to Jana.
yeah, exactly.
And then we can talk to Jana and do the – after we get done with Jana, we do the picks.
Yeah.
Part off
That's what we should do.
I can cut that part out of let's talk to Jana.
Yeah. Because I'll do an intro for her then.
Yeah, let's go ahead and pick it back up and just look at
Where are we going? Stat stuffers?
stat sheet stuffers, yeah.
Or boys or girls?
so basically, right before
Boys.
Scott said, talking to the girls.
Right. So,
We take pictures of the timestamps. So where do we want to be here? The stats.
So
stats.
we can do
Yeah.
stats. We can do the boys, and then just say, all right, now let's look at some girls' performers for the week, and then after we get done with that, we can talk girls for a little while, then have Jana on.
that's
What do you think
actually
about that?
smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in order of what it is. Right
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Do y'all think go ahead and try to do the pick 'em with the boys? Or
I
wait
say
for
we
the
just do
very
them all at
last?
the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
good.
don't you think?
It'll be easier.
Yeah,
that
that'd
way
be
it's
good.
in one segment, too. If
Yeah.
we ever
Yeah.
want to pull it out,
Yeah.
if something's good happens, or you never know.
It's
You
got
know, we might
something.
want to tease some parts
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
It'll be easier if we do it that way.
All right. Just start off. Say Let's say we.
I'm gonna let you.
Yeah.
Start it.
All right, ready? 3, 2.
Let's look at our stat sheet stuffers for our boys side. We've been talking a lot of boys hoops. What about Muscle Shoals? They had a huge week. I don't know if we've talked about them as much as we should. Had nearly 5 double-digit scores against Hartselle. Gavin Hulsey led the way with 13. Draper added 12. Aiden Little had 11. Christian Pritchard had 10 points and 10 rebounds and 6 assists. And then KJ Cowan had 10 points as well. And then you had Draper turn around and had 20 against Decatur Heritage. He's playing really well, it seems like, and leading Muscle Shoals. But they have a really balanced attack. Other players, we've not named Deshler's, but Jovi Jackson's been huge for them. He led them with 18 and 20 this week. And also Reed, who we've talked about a lot, has had 11 and 20 this week as well.
I feel like Jovi Jackson's making a case for Player of the Week.
He's knocking on the door.
He is. He's had a solid year.
We've talked about him.
Yep.
I guess the past 2 to 3 weeks.
Yep.
Speaking of former players of the week, RJ Gourley and Miles Warren had big weeks for Brooks. RJ had 20 and 10 this week in the 2 games they played. Miles had 14 and 14. Played well for them as they played Wilson. Speaking of Wilson, Freddie Franks, he had 19 and Glaze scored 15 versus Brooks. If we scroll down and look a little bit further, those guys just had some really good weeks against Central. Franks had 20 points, and then Glaze had 14. But Cole Miller, that's another one that we've talked about from time to time. He had 19 against Central. I feel like they're just knocking on the door, man. They're close.
I do too.
It'll be really interesting to see if they can just beat that door down. They're right in position of where they want to be.
I'm not going to say that Wilson. They play Deshler twice and play Brooks one more time. I'm not going to say that they. It's not going to surprise me if they win one of those games. It's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not. But anyways, I know we're talking stats. I just want to throw that in there.
Scott had mentioned this one earlier, but for Loretto County, Cayden Holden had a career high 27. What was the total? Was it all threes? Was it?
I think it was all threes.
So
yeah,
scored 27 and 9 threes. Jaden Sears, freshman or not freshman, but 8th grader. We've talked about he had 14 points earlier in the week. Coach Prestige's Pirates, Will Robertson, he had 23 against Covenant. It can be a matchup problem. Waterloo had Dane Morris, who had 22 earlier in the week. We've talked about Central and Bryant Handback, and I mentioned it earlier, but Jackson Brewer has been playing really well for them as well. He had finished with 19 against Wilson, and then Brewer had 12 against Deshler. So those are some guys that are doing some good things. And then, again, for Lexington, Noah LeMay just keeps popping up on the sheet. He had 26 and 18. He's scoring it really well. So those are some guys that we've been able to kind of give a shout-out to and give them some love this week, and that'll kind of put us moving forward to our next segment.
Now transitioning to girls basketball, big talking points from last week. Deshler has another big week, as they've done throughout the year, and Reese Davis surpasses 1,500 points, and I'm sure we'll look at her total she had throughout the week later when we talk about stats. But Deshler girls continue to roll, and continue to make a postseason, looking like they're going to make a postseason push, which they always do. Lauderdale County got a big win in Tennessee, beating Loretto. Loretta's girls are always solid. Anytime you cross that state line in girls basketball and
some
get
good
a
competition.
win, yes, you're playing good competition, and it's just tough. It's the atmosphere's tough. The game's officiated a little bit different, so it's definitely impressive for them to go
2-0 up there, or 3-0, I guess.
Well, they had one loss. Richland beat them. That's their
so
long
3-1. They got 2 against Loretto and 1 against Wayne County.
3-1 in the state of Tennessee. That's not bad in girls basketball.
No, not at all.
Not bad.
What about the Florence girls?
they're continuing to stay hot. So they're quietly having a solid season. Sort of like their guys though. That area it's just tough. You know, they'll have a big game this week against James Clemens that we'll talk about later. But Coach Blair Woods and the Florence Lady Falcons are having a solid season.
Yeah.
Lexington, a team that, you know, has been trending.
Yeah.
Got a big win over Tanner, big area win. They lost to Decatur Heritage. Decatur Heritage is the number 1 2A girls team in the state. So, and
the Lady Trojans got a big win over.
They did. They 2 big wins. They came up short against Hartselle, but Hartselle's, I think, ranked 3rd in the state.
Yeah, Amber DeLine.
Amber DeLine does a great job. And I'm not, you know, they still got they're still going to play Hartselle. I'm going to say 2 more times, so I'm not counting them out. That was a competitive game.
Yeah.
But a win against Decatur Heritage, even though it's a 2A team, but they're a really solid 2A team, so solid win for Muscle Shoals. And the Wilson Lady Warriors, we're still trying to get Coach Oakley on here at some time. At some point, we'll get him because they're having a great season. Probably the best season from a win-loss vantage point. You know, the best season they've had in a while, maybe in Coach Oakley's tenure, and he's had a lot of good years.
Yeah.
You know, they got 2 big wins against Brooks and Central. Sarah Davis from Shoals Christian had another big week. They got a big win against Cherokee. So just looking at girls basketball down the stretch here, something interesting. I think this week we get to see that Wilson-Deshler matchup. Can Wilson get over the hump and you know, compete with Deshler in that 4A area? That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
You know, other than that, Marshall stays strong. Lauderdale County stays strong. I know in our group message this week, we talked about how much we're anticipating getting to see Lauderdale County and Marshall's girls play, hopefully, in the county tournament. That's, you know, still a few weeks off, but that's to me the big storyline for the week is, you know, Wilson playing Deshler for the first time.
Yeah.
What's that going to look like? You know, can Wilson compete? I'm not saying, you know, they have to win the game. I know it's an area game you want to win, but can they compete enough and do enough things right to show that come area tournament time, if they see them in the area finals, you know, can they make that game interesting? Yeah,
that is. It's a big question.
Yeah.
You know, also in that area, I felt like Central played Wilson really tough the other night. They competed real well. That was a really close game. Going back, Coach Oakley had been out, I think, the past week with flu. So, you know, obviously missing your head coach, that's a big deal. But that will be really interesting to see, you know, can the Lady Warriors led by the Buffalo, excuse me, I said Buffalo, but the Miami Ice Player of the Week that we're going to be naming here shortly. And Miss Simone will be leading them in that charge against Deshler. But again, you got Deshler who year after year after year after year, they're good. And not only are they talented and led by Reese, who's a phenomenal player, just that mental block of, you know, somebody that's had success against you, trying to get over that hump and compete and win against. And that's hard. It's difficult to do. And
I'm happy you mentioned Central because we've talked about them a few times, and, you know, we eventually want to get Coach Murphy on here because Central's a team that is trending upward. You know, the first time they played Wilson, I think it was a 27-point game, maybe something like that. It was very competitive when they played Wilson or not. So Central's a team that, you know, is getting better, and that's a scary team because they play hard. So I'm happy you mentioned Central. But, yeah, Deshler.
And we got the Lady Bears and Lauderdale County Tigers this week. It's going to be a big rival that we've talked about before, and it's kind of the same spot really on the boys and the girls side. Lauderdale County's had a lot of success in that rival. They've had a lot of success against a lot of people, and girls and boys both.
And the Lexington, their area game with Decatur Heritage seemed to be much more competitive. Than
they're tough.
They are tough.
They're huge. They're tall.
But I'm telling you, that's going in the right direction for Lexington, I think.
They got Howard back. She had a high ankle sprain. She'd played. I wouldn't say she's 100%. They had one of the White sisters during the Tanner game took a bad elbow to the eye and just really swollen up.
Yeah.
And so they're starting to get a little bit healthy, but, they played Lauderdale County pretty close the last time, so it'll be interesting to see that game as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into some of these
let's
stat sheet
look at some
stuffers.
stats. Let's start off with a new name on the show. We probably haven't mentioned Belle Hill. I don't know if anybody's heard of Belle Hill. No,
She's not bad.
She's not
She's
bad.
not bad.
She had another a solid week for Marcel. She had 25 points, and we need to give a shout out to Molly Wright, who scored a career high 31 points for the Panthers this week. Also, Wilson's Anna Simone scored 16 points in their win against Central, and Anna Simone is our Miami Ice Player of the Week this year for the Lady Warriors. So congratulations to her. Also for Wilson, Ellie Kate Hewitt added 13 points, and Sadie Grace Bonds had 10 in their win against Central. For Central, Isla Hardy had 11 points. Miley Tucker had 10, and Paisley Tyser had 9 for Central in that game against Wilson. Reese Davis, another name that, everybody's heard quite a bit. She scored 30 points in their win over Brooks to surpass 1,500 points for her career as a sophomore. That is very impressive to have that many points that early in her career. So congratulations to Reese. For Waterloo, Mabry Ford scored 31 points, and Addie Pollard added 15.
It's big time.
That is big time. Anytime you score 30-plus points in a high school game, that's impressive. And then for Loretta, Allie Weathers had a solid week as well for the Lady Mustangs.
No, she did, and she's solid. I know you got to see her the other night when she scored 18 against Lauderdale County, and then went on to another big rival game and had 16 against Lawrence County. My Lady Bears, Brinley White, she had 15 for Lexington. I want to give a shout out to an 8th grader, Cooper Knox. She added 10 for the Bears and got to move up in her first varsity or maybe second varsity game, but scored double digits. Her dad watches this show a lot and is always very supportive. I wanted to give a shout out to them.
For Lauderdale County, Shala Marks had 17 points and 21 points this week, while Meredith Newton had 16 and 13 for the Tigers. So solid week for those two players. They've both had really strong
Seems to be
years.
their 1-2 punch.
Yeah. Muscle Shoals, Mackenzie Sears, man, she's been putting up numbers all year long. She had 25 points against Decatur Heritage. And for Florence, Kenise Thurlkill scored 4 of her 18 points in overtime, including the go-ahead three-pointer. Talia Rowell had 17 points and 6 assists as well. So a lot of good girls that had big weeks this week. So congratulations to those ladies. And going
What about
forward.
this one? Then Sarah Davis.
Sarah Davis, another name that, we've heard a lot of. She had 39 points on Monday, and Thursday she finished with 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 14 steals, 7 assists. You talk about a stat sheet
14
stuffer.
steals.
14
Yeah.
steals and 7
wild,
assists.
It's going to be a record.
Yeah.
Yes. It's insane.
And she scored at least 20 in 12 straight games. So Sarah Davis from Shoals Christian, another household name that's having a solid year. But when we talk about girls basketball, Coach Janet Killan, the Deshler Tigers, she's been the coach there for, I think this is her 36th season.
Yeah.
And
you said she was there when her first year, you were
I was a senior
senior. Okay.
in 1990.
Yeah.
That's when she showed up.
It's crazy.
Well, the crazy thing about it is she looks the same
Yeah.
now as she did then. So, real testament to how she's taking care of herself, the
Yes.
program, and just, she embodies everything that there is to love about girls basketball and Deshler. And she's really put them on the map, since being
absolutely.
there.
She has.
Yeah.
Of course, Lauderdale County, another big program. You've won multiple state championships, having to go through that same juggernaut of the Deshler Tigers, en route to doing that. So really good girls basketball, but nothing higher than Jana Killan, who passed 900 wins
Yeah.
recently. And let's get her on the phone and talk to her about her year so far.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear from her.
A real pleasure for me personally and our co-host to be joined now by the legend Deshler lady basketball coach Jana Killan. Coach Killan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure for me. As I mentioned, when I was a senior at Deshler in 1990, you showed up in Tuscumbia, a young, excited coach, and here we are 36 years later and 900 plus wins later. Just talk about that. I mentioned right before you came on the air that to me you look the same then as you do now. How have you been able to do that?
Keep moving, but I hope that I didn't look then like I look now.
Well, just the young, just the energy level. I mean, it's really, something that is admired, not just locally here in the Shoals area, but from afar. I mean, when you mention Deshler, they're known for football, of course, but when you mention Deshler throughout the state, the girls' basketball program is what people know about, and just talk about, this year's team. You're quietly, in my opinion, it's hard to be quiet when you're the Deshler Tigers, but you're 19-3. Talk about this season and some of the players on your team and the success you've had so far.
It does kind of seem like we're quietly 19-3. We're just taking it one game at a time, and we're young, and they are responding very well. They do everything we ask of them, so it's been a very pleasurable, fun experience with these kids.
Hey, Coach, Blake Prestige here. We appreciate you coming on. As I've mentioned on the show before, you and I, me being the coach at Rogers, us being in the same area, we've had many battles over the year, and I've said this: we played teams that were on paper faster than you guys and probably more athletic than you guys, but to me, there is nothing like the speed of the Deshler press. How do you get those girls to play so hard for you? And it just seems like, the second half over there in the dome, y'all hop in that press, and it seems like you've got 8 girls out there sometimes. What's the key? How do you get your kids to play so hard?
I really don't know what to tell you. I got to give it to the kids. I guess they just buy into it and have seen previous years, and they want to continue to do what they've seen before them, which is just play hard. And of course the dome is, it's a special place, and we had some great matchups. It was always fun.
It was.
Hey, Coach, this is David Hill. Congratulations on another great year and then another milestone. You've always been so encouraging, and appreciate you. And one of the things that I want to ask you is, we talked about the amount of time that you've coached. What are some of the differences? We had Coach Rutherford on last week, and she has coached for a long time. What are some of the differences between when you started and now? What do you look back and think? There's some things I know that you're like, this has not changed. These are still the same things, but is there anything that you look back and think, man, this is a whole lot different from when I got here?
Yes, I got to say the time put in.
Uh-huh.
It's just multiplied. Everybody's doing it, so it's like you have to just keep working to try to stay ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Where before, you did a few little things in the summer. We'd have open gym and stuff in our 1 week at camp, but now, you have 3 weeks and you're going at it.
Yeah, it's like its own season.
I would have to say the time.
And I want to hear some names. Reese Davis, obviously the standout sophomore, just passed 1,500 points for you guys at Auburn commit already.
Yeah, she's doing great. She puts in, a lot of time, a lot of extra time working on her game, and she's a fun player to be around, a fun kid to be around. And nobody's going to outwork her. If she thought somebody was outworking her, she would, she would then beat them. So,
Well, and what are some other names of players on your team that are listeners and our viewers? Give some shout outs to some other girls on your team that are having good years.
Definitely. Jalen Davis, she's doing awesome. She's, hitting the boards hard and scoring good for us. She's a senior and she's really having a great year. Of course, Cooper Thompson, she's the true definition of grit, no doubt. She's going to hit the floor. She's going to be diving and digging. So you got, that's 2 seniors. Then I have another senior, Sarah Hillhart. She comes in as a role player. She plays hard. No juniors on the roster. So then you've got Reese, as you said, was a sophomore, and Kendall Scoggin is a sophomore, and Jemiah Goodlow. They play hard. Freshman Casey Nelson's doing a great job, and her twin sister Chloe was doing a great job also, and she's been injured for about 5 weeks, and we're hoping to get her back this week. But they're dynamic players, fun to watch. Maya Allen has stepped in, and she's been starting for us. She's another very gritty player. She's a 9th grader. And you got Scout Siegel, another 9th grader. She's going, the Siegels can shoot, and Scout can shoot. She's no different. You just see if I'm forgetting anybody. I don't think I am. That's probably it. Oh, Jamaica Hampton, she went out with a ACL injury. She was doing really good for us. She got 1.5 games in before she tore her ACL. So we've had to learn to live without her and Chloe Nelson. But like I said, Chloe will be back hopefully this week.
Coach, who's in charge of making your schedule? Because when you go down and look through it, it's riddled with 7A opponents, 6A opponents. Of course, one of them, Muscle Shoals. You guys also play a lot of 5A. Where you played Russellville. You really play a lot of bigger teams. Is it just difficult to schedule games, or do you just want that, smoke against some of these, bigger teams to kind of ready yourself or your team as you get closer to February?
We want it. We especially like to do it during Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff. We get out and about and get to play people that we don't know. Like this Christmas, we went to Pigeon Forge, and that was a great trip. We played some really big schools out of Tennessee and Georgia and played awesome. And that was a really fun trip. Both us and the boys went, and the kids had a lot of fun. We did a lot of fun stuff.
Coach, you mentioned Scout Siegel and the Seagulls and how, what prolific shooters they are. And I'll tell you a funny story, and this will show you what a bad coach I am. Chloe Siegel's 8th grade year, we were getting ready to play you guys in the first area game, and it was fairly early in the year, and there wasn't a whole lot of film on Chloe. I think I'd watched 3 or 4 films, and she had shot it well, but I wasn't convinced that she was just a great shooter. So we decided we were just going to play her regular, and I think she had 8 threes in the first half against us. So she made a believer. She made a believer out of me real quick.
Yes, you never let her have an easy shot after that.
Well, it wasn't me. It was our players, but that's probably because they knew what would happen if she did get an easy shot off. So, Coach, we appreciate you coming on and looking forward to watching you guys down the stretch. And I know, just like y'all normally do, y'all will be in the mix for that blue map, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys compete for it.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate y'all doing this and getting basketball out there. Y'all got the passion for it, and you're doing a great job.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see.
That was Deshler Lady Tiger coach. I apologize. I went to Deshler. Been thinking about Brooke so much. I'm having withdrawals about my pick. When I picked against him, I go to sleep.
Talking about her, man.
Central.
Like, I'm 36.
She's been coaching since you've been born. Yeah.
I felt like I was a head coach and doing it 10 years. I felt like that was a long time. And in this day and age, it is like, and I'm not making that statement of like, that's just it's so impressive, and it's just for how long she's done it, how well she's done it. It's just hats off to her.
I will say this though, she's done it right, which I think. Don't get me wrong, she's an extremely hard worker. I know. You know, I've seen it. She's got passion. You know, especially for somebody who's been doing it as long as she has. You know, every year it seems like it's year one coaching against her. But the way she's built that program over there, especially when TVBA came around, you know, she really jumped out ahead of everybody else on that because she's heavily involved in TVBA. She's just got a system over there, and it works. You know, she puts the time in. And you can see it watching their 3rd and 4th grade teams play. You know, those girls, you know, they grow up wanting to be Lady Tigers. They dream about being Lady Tigers, and they install their system early on, and that's why they have
she coached a few of them too, didn't she?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, she was coaching TVBA when it was like $5 to get in.
Yeah. But she definitely puts the time in. She does.
She does. No, it's impressive. No joke.
She's won a ton of games, but we have in our studio right now the one coach that has the best winning percentage against Jana Killan.
David Hill.
No, that wasn't me.
That's Blake Prestige. You know. Now here's the thing. You're looking back. You won 2 state championships, correct? Mm-hmm. Don't you feel, and do you ever just think about the one that got away? I mean, you guys, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me, I think you beat Deshler 3 or 4 times in the season that Deshler ended up winning the state championship. Is that correct?
Well, no. In 2020, we had a really good team, and we beat Deshler 3 times that year, and they beat us in the regional final. And actually, that year, Deshler got beat in the state championship game, so they didn't win it.
Okay.
Was that the Madison Academy?
No,
They beat
it was
them that year?
Aniston beat them.
Aniston.
Okay.
Aniston beat them in
that's
the
right.
state championship game. But yeah, we went through a stretch there that we had some good success against them. But it was never. I mean, that's just like it was never easy. That's just like that 2020 game right there. We were the favorite going in, but a lot of that falls in line too. What I talked to Coach Owens about. We had a team the year before. Our kids didn't know any better, you know. Going into that 2020 matchup in the regional final, you know, we beat this team so many times in a row. All the pressure was on us. No pressure was on them. That plays a huge factor when you're talking about high school kids. So, yeah, we had a good run against them, but it was never easy. You know, even there was some years we had probably more talent than them, but it was never easy, just because they do things well, and she gets those kids to play extremely hard. And they're one of those teams, and I don't know what she does, but when they get momentum, they just feed on it. And that dome feeds on it as well. So
I can remember the first time we played them. I was coaching girls, and we were at the Keith Davis, and we were down 4 at the half, and I was really mad because I felt our girls were very intimidated and didn't play. And I slammed the door open, and I go in, and I get on them, and Deshler ends up beating us by 24, 25. They had Carly Sledge.
yeah,
We would break their press, and we would I say we'd break their press. We would get the ball up the floor, and we'd be on a 2-on-1 against Carly Sledge, which was like 6'2". She was so good, and we'd get into these 2-on-1 situations. She'd just swat them away, and I'm like, I'd look back at her assistant and like, man, we're getting to where you like to get at when you get pressed. Like, you know, we're getting all the way down to where we want to get, but it's like I felt like she had 15 blocks.
yeah.
So what do you even do? Like, it was so.
So my first year, the first time we played Deshler, that Carly Sledge, Taylor Akerson, Abby Holly. I mean, they're loaded. I think that team finished runner-up. They got beat by Madison Academy in the state championship game. But we're playing at Rogers, area game. I'm young, first year, you know, fired up over there, you know, pacing the sideline. And she made, I mean, their bread and butter is a 2-2-1 press.
Mm-hmm.
So she comes out in the 2-2-1 press, and it's just the regular soft 2-2-1 press, and we're competing with them. You know, they're going through the motions. They're thinking we're playing Rogers, and so Coach Killan finally gets mad, and I hear her down there, and she says, "Hard, hard," talking about their press. And Coach Newton, our assistant coach, says, "What do you think hard means?" I said, "I don't know, but it's not good." I think they went on like a 20-0 run in probably 2 or 3 minutes, and it was over after that. But
well, even for me, going back to thinking about those teams you talked about, like they were, I think they had a 4-peat.
Yeah.
During that stretch of, like, we're coaching my first year coaching girls basketball, we lost to Loretto County, who won. They were in a 5-peat. We lost to Deshler, who was in a 4-peat. Mm-hmm. And then we lost to Red Bay, who was in a 3-peat.
Yeah.
Was the Stoltz girl on that team that went to UNA?
The younger sister was.
Okay.
And then, of course, we played against all the triplets. I would have
team.
loved to have that one. And she's actually coaching at Hartselle now, who, beat Muscle Shoals earlier in the week. She's an assistant to
That's
Amber.
awesome.
And then I coached the baby sister, Audrey, who was great. I would have loved to have had all 3 of them. But it just goes back to, again, you're talking about just how good girls basketball is. Mm-hmm. And then we lucked up and played that Madison Academy team you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
We beat them. And then we beat them. We were the last team to beat them. And then they went on a 5-peat, I think.
Yeah.
Josh Langford's little sister was on that team. Was really good. I remember watching some of those matchups back in the day.
Good.
But you talked about Jana kind of getting her, time with the kids in the TVBA, but she also coaches volleyball, and she a lot of times has a lot of those girls that play basketball too. So she's just around those girls,
right?
And she's able to I think that's an advantage. I think that's an advantage. I really do. She's done a good job.
And I'll tell you something else they do. I've noticed this. If she has a girl who plays basketball that maybe doesn't play volleyball, she's still involved in the volleyball program. Mm-hmm. She might be the libero tracker, or she's there as a team manager. Yeah. So, it's really like a family oriented program, which helps them. I mean, obviously, so she does a great job. So
I think she's won just as many volleyball games as basketball. Yeah. So definitely thanks to Jana Killan for joining us, and all our coaches that we get both in studio and on the phone. And I mentioned it when Coach Killan was here, and Hunter, we talked to him and Whitney, but we can't do it without their participation. And, they probably, dread, having to, hear from us, on a weekly basis. But I think for the most part, they've embraced what we're doing to a point where they are willing to give of their time, especially in weeks like this when area games are so important for all these teams. And so we thank them, and we want to give them a shout out.
And we want to thank you and Jeremy. You guys
absolutely.
Blake and I, we come and talk, and we put in work, I guess, with it. But you guys have your equipment, your time, your money, your resources have played a huge part in growing this game. And you and Jeremy have just, when I came to you, I had a vision. But you guys have really pushed it and ran, and I appreciate what y'all have done. And I know Blake, when I picked him up tonight, and we both, and I think I can speak for you too as well, Scott. We all look forward to Sunday, man.
Oh yeah,
no doubt.
Getting to get together and hang out and talk ball, and it's always a fun time. So big thanks to all of y'all. But we're about to get to the main event time.
Oh yeah, speaking of fun times, it wasn't a fun time for me last week, but we'll hope to redeem myself.
Coach Bryant's worried about you burning the Central Jersey next.
I don't know why, because I'm a believer. I still, even to this moment, don't know who I'm gonna pick in that game. Sometimes I like to listen to what you guys say and who you pick, but totally apologize to the Row the Boat Nation for the disrespect that I showed them last week, and we'll see if we can give them a little love here in our week picks.
Let's
Here we
get
go.
this thing started. Monday night, we've got Covenant Christian traveling to Shoals Christian. I'll get us started here. I'm going with Shoals Christian and Sarah Davis. I'm not picking against her. The number she puts up in the girls' game. And in the boys' game, I'm going with Covenant Christian. I think they've got a lot of kids that just know how to win. I know they've been sort of rebuilding this year, but I think Covenant Christian gets it done against the Flame.
Yeah, I'm going with Sarah Davis and the Lady Flames, I guess you'd say as well. I'm going to go with Covenant, but Shoals Christian boys have seemed to they've competed. I know it's been a hard year for them. They were close the last week, but I guess I'll go with Covenant boys as well. Scott, what you got?
Well, I've been a big fan of the triplets, collectively, both, Emma, Ivy, and, of course, Ella. And Emma's the coach for the Flame, and she coaches Sarah Davis. And I'm not going against her.
Does a good job with them.
She's one of the biggest competitors I've ever been around. You know, her and her sister are the 1 and 2 leading scorers of all time in North Alabama history.
Yeah.
And she's doing a good job, and she kind of gets them fired up. She's feisty on that sideline, and
Just like
I think
she
she'll have them
played.
ready to go against the Lady Eagles. So I'm going to take the Flame in that one. But I got the boys. First year coach Bobby Winston having to take a job that Brett
shoes to
Waldrop
fill.
had and had a lot of success. We talked about the big shoes that Hunter had to fill, and he took your spot. And of course, he's done a good job. And I got them winning this game. And tough year for the Flame, the boys. They're a down year for them for sure.
Then Tuesday night, we've got Lindsay Lane going to Lexington. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Area game. I'm going to make this short and sweet. I'm going Lexington in both games. Big.
Yeah, same.
Big.
Go Bears.
Yeah, I got the Lady Bears as well. And unless Tommy Murr's playing for Lindsay Lane,
Hope he's
which I
not.
don't think he is, then I'm going with Lexington
If
for
Tommy
sure.
Murr's playing, I'm going to watch that game. I can tell you that.
Tommy Murr's playing. I'm going to have flashbacks of him scoring 50-something points against us.
I'm still thinking back, and I want to interrupt this, that
Yeah.
you were mad at halftime when you were coaching against Deshler that we were only down 4 points.
Well, Blake did a good job of bringing some context to the situation. Young and arrogant and fiery. I think he used that to describe himself.
Yeah.
But that was me at that time as well. Like I'm ready to fight the world, and I don't care if Rebecca Lobo's leading the team out and Cheryl Swoops. Like we were going to go figure it out.
We didn't know any better. We didn't know any better.
And it goes back to what we were talking about with those young teams. They didn't know any better. And that was
young
that was
coaches
me
too.
and Blake as young coaches. We didn't know any better, and we just thought we were going to change the world. And but no. Quick, I learned a big lesson. I always talk about that, the difference in coaching boys and girls. And I went in there, and it was a talk that a lot of times your guys would just be like beating the door down to go out, and our girls were just like,
I know the feeling. Yeah.
that was not.
They didn't respond well. Yeah.
One of the many times in my life it was poor coaching. Like I should have been a lot more. Come on, just like Scott said, we're 4 points, man. They've won 5 in a row. And I was really wanting to push them over the edge, and I did, but just not in the right direction over the edge.
Well, a clean sweep for the Lexington Fighting David Hills over there.
There we go.
And we're moving on to Mars Hill and Sheffield.
Reunion game for Coach South.
Yeah. Jim South Bowl. In the girls' game, Marshall's girls have played a really tough schedule, and I would say in this game, I would be interested to see how Marshall would react to the speed and athleticism of Sheffield. It's an area game; they're going to be prepared. I will say Sheffield's girls are much improved this year, and they're having a solid year. But I think Marshall will be too much. I'm taking Marshall girls in that game, and again, Sheffield's guys much improved this year. They got a big win against Central. I'm going with Marshall, but I think it's going to be competitive, and I think I think Sheffield's going to give them all they want. It's an area game, but at the end of the day, I'm going with Mars Hill.
Yeah, I think Mars Hill is just too much in both categories, in boys and girls. But with that said, I don't want that to take away from, again, there's a lot of growth on Sheffield. Girls and boys, both their teams are performing well. But I just feel like Mars Hill is just too much.
And, I think Jim South will have Sheffield ready for this game. I think the crowd will be into it, knowing that it's a homecoming of sorts for him, given that he coached Mars Hill, and Mars Hill coming off a state championship. But in going to the girls' game, and the boys, I tend to lean toward who's got the best player. So Bell Hill is the best player and Eli Pounder. So those two reasons alone,
they're just so dominant.
I'm taking Mars Hill to sweep Sheffield on the road.
Florence James Clemens. This could have been this would have been a great game for our game of the week. So we got to give it some love because it's a big matchup for the Florence Falcons, a big area game. I'm going Florence girls. I think they're trending. Blair Woods is doing a great job with them. I'm going with the Florence girls. And then in the boys game, Jalen Chandler. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
I'm not picking against Florence, so give me Florence in the boys game as well.
Yeah, I'm going Florence in both. We were talking about on the ride over here, James Clemens. That was my first job out of college. Got hired there, and was interim coach in the summer as Coach Tiggs got out, who we had on our first episode ever. They got a good program. Frankie Sullivan does a good job with the boys, but I just feel like the Falcons coming off of a tough loss against Austin are going to come out and respond.
I got Florence girls too against James Clemens, and in the boys' side, they got the three-headed monster of Bryant James, of course, the aforementioned Jalen Chandler and Jalen Blackwell.
Correct.
He was a guy that I
dude.
thought outside of the week Bryant Hamback had, not just winning big games but putting up good numbers in those games. He was right there, and so he's knocking on the door of being our player of the week. So I got Florence, who won at home pretty convincing against these same James Clemens Jets. So I got the Falcons in that one.
Deshler traveling to Zip City to play the Wilson Warriors again on Tuesday nights. Let's pick the girls' game first, and then backtrack to the boys' game. Let's do that. In the girls' game, I think Wilson's going to come out. I think they're going to have a plan. I think they're going to be fired up. I think they're going to compete. As I said earlier, I'm interested to see how they compete. At the end of the day, in this matchup, though, I'm going with the Deshler Lady Tigers, but I do think Wilson's going to compete. Give me Reese Davis and Deshler.
Yeah, I'm doing the same, and a lot of that. Again, she's just done such a good job, and they've had so many good teams. It's hard to get over that hump when you've, been on the wrong end of that so many times, and they're coming back with another good team. But I really do. I think Wilson will be very competitive with them. I think they'll see growth, and I think that's what you got to look for is growth of how you compete. Wilson's still a young team, and I like what they're doing. I like what Coach Oakley has done, and they have a great team. But I think Deshler will be a little bit too much.
Shout out to Anna Simone for Wilson, our Week 8 Girls Player of the Week.
Yeah.
But Deshler took a bad loss. I didn't bring it up on the phone to Coach Killan, but they went into Mississippi and played Tishomingo County and just got bumped.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a 30-point loss. Since then, they're winners of 10 in a row. They're trending in the right direction. I think that 11 is inevitable in this game, and I got the Lady Tigers.
And in the boys' game, look, I sort of alluded to it earlier. Wilson, to me, last year when Wilson played Deshler, they led in both regular season games. I'm pretty sure Wilson led both those games at the half.
Yeah, they did.
I think Wilson this year, I think they've improved too much. I think they're playing with a confidence. Wilson has to win one of these games this year that on paper they're not supposed to win. And I think it's going to be this game. I think Wilson is going to pull the upset over Deshler Tuesday night at home, and later when we get to other picks, it's going to show how this is going to shake out that 4A area. But I think Wilson's going to play spoiler. I think they're going to beat Deshler Tuesday night.
Well, you kind of stole what I was thinking as well. I think Deshler's coming off a huge win against Brooks. I talked about it earlier. I feel like Wilson's really close to just beating that door down. What I do like is that it is at Wilson. Again, I think Wilson's a really good team. With that said, I think Deshler's a really good team. I think it just goes back to what we talk about over and over again. This is a crazy area, and there's 4 really, really good basketball teams. And I think they're kind of going to get over that hump a little bit. But we're going to go back to the Deshler alumni.
So you're taking Wilson?
I'm going with Wilson. I am.
Two taking Wilson.
Well, here's the deal. I was impressed by Wilson at Brooks. Hunter Glaze was attacking the rim. They shot the 3 really well early in the game. And, it just started to get down to the wire where it looked like they were going to, get over the hump and win the game. And Brooks had a really good fourth quarter and ended up winning the game by 15. And, so at their best, I can see Wilson, beating teams like this in the area. But I'm just expecting a breakout game from Garrett Reed. We talked about Jovi Jackson. Aiden Woody's had a great year too. But Garrett Reed will be the best player on the floor in that game, and that's for that reason I'm taking Deshler.
Well, and even going back to like having Hunter in here talking about the struggles we've had against Loretto County, and I've been on both sides of that, where you've had a girls' job where you've won a ton of games, and you've had another job where it's just been a fight, and you feel like you're on the other end. It goes back to what we're talking about with the girls, with Deshler and Wilson. Wilson has a really good team, and they're getting better. The really hard part is getting over the hump against some of these high school blue bloods in a Deshler, in a Brooks. And, they hadn't had a lot of success against Central over the past few years. Being able to kick that door down, it's hard. And I think this will be a game at Wilson where, again, they've been – every game we've talked about, the Brooks game, the Central game – they basically felt like they had Central beat, with a second left or whatever. They're so close. So it'll be really important, whether it's this week or can they knock that door down, because they've made great strides to get to where they're at. They got to get that one little notch, and it's going to be an interesting thing to see how this plays out.
Yeah. Friday night, Athens travels to Muscle Shoals. I'll make this short and sweet. Y'all might disagree with me. I think both games are not going to be competitive. I'm going Muscle Shoals big in both games. And when I say not competitive, I'm talking about a 6A boys game. I'm 15 to 20 points. I'm going Muscle Shoals. And the girls game, probably more.
Well, I think the boys are peaking at the right time. And do you mind telling me the 2 words anytime we talk about the Muscle Shoals Lady Trojans?
Mackenzie Sears.
Yes.
Yeah, Mackenzie Sears. I mean, definitely a player that has not been just a player of the week for us, but she's just on that outside behind maybe the likes of Bell Hill and Reese Davis and Sarah Davis as a player of the year candidate.
Correct.
I mean, she really puts that team on her back. She plays inside out. She handles the ball. She's like a point forward for them. So I got them winning. I think Athens is the defending state champs, or maybe they won it 2 years ago. The years run together for me, but I like what Coach has done since getting there. And actually, I take that back. It's Coleman that I keep mistaking them. And I was talking to Mike Underwood the other day. I was fortunate enough to go to the game that I did try to get you guys to go to, but you administrators, you got other callings, and duties. But
if that call
I
comes
had the
again,
same mistake. I mentioned that, and he corrected me then and said it's Coleman. But they got the same colors, so
they do.
It messed me up. So I'm with Coach Prestige. I think Muscle Shoals wins both those games, and I'm just waiting for a breakout from Jemarion Draper. I mean, he's a prospect to look at going forward on the boys' side. Probably the next, big prospect that we've got in our coverage area. So I got the Trojans.
So we actually went with 2 games of the week this week because we have two really big matchups that are going to really have huge implications in how these areas play out. The first one's going to be Thursday nights. Lauderdale County travels to Colbert County. I'll go and pick the girls' game. Going to Colbert County's tough. It is. Colbert County has a much better team than they've been the last few years. I actually witnessed the first time they played. It never got to a running clock. Colbert County competed with Lauderdale County, I thought. And I think at their place, it's even going to be that much better. I think this game's going to be competitive for a while, maybe a half. At the end of the day, though, I think Lauderdale County is going to be too much. I think they pull away at the end. I'm going Lauderdale County in the girls' game.
Same. They're on their own level right now.
Shiloh Marks. Mm-hmm. Going Lauderdale County.
Yeah.
Boys game, what you got, Blake?
In the boys' game, we had Coach Owens in here tonight. We talked about the youth of their team. I think that their youth, and I sort of alluded to this earlier, is going to help them in this game because they're probably not going to realize the significance of the game. Going to Colbert County, they're probably not going to think about that. They're not going to think about the tough atmosphere. So the first time they played at Lauderdale County is a game that could have went either way. The difference was Black Taylor down the stretch made some tough shots, which he does. Yeah. And Coach Owens said he's going to do that. I think in this game, though, I think Lauderdale County will know what to expect out of Colbert County. I think Coach Owens said it, Black Taylor's a great player, but they got other cats that can play too. So I think Lauderdale County, maybe knowing what to expect going in this game, will be the difference. I think Lauderdale County pulls it out.
I'm going with Colbert County. I like Black Taylor. I like them being at home as well. I think Black will just be too much for them.
I tend to pick the team with the best player, and I do think, even though Calvin Watkins was our player of the week earlier in the year for Lauderdale County, and we talked about the young freshman, Cayden Holden, having a career night the other night, so he's going to be playing with a lot of confidence when he goes to Leeton. But, even though I think they'll have the best player on the floor in Black Taylor, I think, in talking to Coach Owens, they had a good game plan for him, kept him probably to one of his few games that he was under 20 points. I mean, he's got the most 20-point games, just so you know, in our coverage area this season. And I think it was the other guys that you mentioned, Blake, that contributed so much, made a lot of outside shots in that game. They won that game 57-52 at Lauderdale County. I don't think they make those shots, and I think Lauderdale County figures out a way to tie that area up with a big road win.
Yeah.
And then our second game of the week, another huge game in 4A. Brooks goes to Central. I'll start with the girls' game. I've been bragging on Central the last few weeks. They're much improved. They play hard. I think Central wins the girls' game.
Agree.
I picked Brooks last week to beat Wilson.
You did.
And that didn't work out too well for me.
Yeah.
So I got the Wildcats in this game.
Wildcats, okay.
I'm humbly shying away. I was a believer, and bless them. They're I love Coach Cope, and they're going to get better, and
they are.
And but Central, I like what Coach Murphy's done. He's played some competitive games against some good teams, Wilson among others, and I think they win this game pretty easy.
Brooks in the boys' game is coming off a loss to the Deshler Tigers. I'm going to say that practice probably hasn't been too much fun for the Brooks Lions the last few days, or I guess
they better not be practicing.
Or I guess today and tomorrow's practice.
Coach Hill's going to be busting down that door.
You're right. I didn't think about that. I think Brooks is going to roll into Central Tuesday night, and I think they're going to win big. I'm fixing to give Central some bulletin board material. I think Brooks is going to overwhelm Central. I don't think the game's going to be close. And going with what I said, I think Wilson's going to beat Deshler tonight. I think Brooks is going to win big, and I think Brooks is going to take control of that area. all in one night. I think Brooks wins big.
Yeah, I think it's so much of matchups. I feel like matchup-wise, feel like Brooks struggles matchup-wise against Deshler. I feel like Deshler struggles matchup-wise against Central. I also feel like Central struggles matchup-wise against Brooks. But with that said, I think Handback and his competitive spirit and the boats are going to be out rowing. Josh Bryant's going to be at home, down on the floor, smacking the floor, pumping the crowd up. I'm going to go with Central. But here's the deal. I did pick against Central last week, but I did not wad their jersey up and throw it.
Like somebody did.
But what we're about to do is we're going to talk to a guy that did. So who do you got this week, Scott?
Listen, Josh Bryant can slap the floor. He can loosen his tie.
Uh-oh.
He can throw the tie.
Uh-oh.
And they'll have the boats out.
Uh-oh.
You know, and I wore my Central laces.
I
okay?
thought there was...
And I got my Central jersey handy. I wouldn't wad this up.
I was wondering where it was.
In fact, I'm gonna swing it around.
Yeah?
Because I think that they're poised for a big win.
Yeah.
In this game. And talking to Bryant, he's got me convinced that they've been nervous in these games, but they're going to be ready in this game. But I think there's going to have a little leak in the boats over there when they try to row against Brooks and RJ Gourley and Miles Warren. Too much outside shooting from Tyson Roberts. Good leadership and defense by Tyler Ashley. My favorite role player in the area, and Clark Warren.
Yeah.
I think I just named their whole five. And for those 5 reasons, I'm taking Brooks in this game on the road.
Close?
For a little while.
You know? They're gonna pull
And,
away.
you know, here's the thing. You know, Josh said it when we were here. His teams have started off a little slow. That's
Yeah.
something they didn't do the other night against Deshler. They got a good
Right.
start. They were at home. Crowd was into it. And when they fall behind, you know, they don't give up. They keep plugging away and keep rowing, if you would.
Yeah.
And I think if they can keep it close, it won't be a blowout like you said. You know, Brooks needs this win, though.
They do.
You know, I wasn't after winning 7 in a row, and then they beat Wilson. Even though the score, if you wake up and read the paper, it said 15-point win. It was closer than that. That game was tight, and they were feeling the pressure. And then to go and lose a game that you know they were up for, and they wanted, and they had the confidence after beating them in the Bracy Championship to lose that game. You know, Miles Warren had a 3 at the buzzer that could have won the game. He didn't make it. And I think Rusty will have him ready, and I got Brooks.
That's 2 weeks in a row you've picked against Central. I know I picked against you guys this week.
But this area...
Or go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're going to be at that game Tuesday night, correct?
100%.
Central
I think we all
student
need to
section, Central student section. Coach Scott Whittle will be there. I'm just saying, he's 2 weeks in a row he's disrespected you guys. So let's make sure that you give him a shout out from the student section during the game, because you'll be able to spot him. He'll be sitting on the Brooks side, probably near the front row. Make sure y'all just give Coach Whittle a shout out at the game Tuesday night.
I might have to go watch Alabama play Ole Miss that night. That's probably my safer play. Go to Tuscaloosa, watch the Tide roll.
It'll be fun. You got to be at Central Tuesday night. It'll be fun.
All of that for Central, though. You think about it, they had the game against Wilson. They had the game against Deshler. It'll be another awesome environment Tuesday night.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you want in high school basketball. It's going to be fun to watch. And, you know, if Scott goes, we may need to go and kind of cover his left and right side.
Yeah.
Just kind of be his bodyguards. Jeremy, we're going to need you free.
Yeah.
We'll have an off-duty police officer there. So,
but
interesting.
I think this is our biggest week so far in high school basketball.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot
Pivotal.
of answers after this week. Yes, so I'm looking forward to it. You know, it's just a fun time. We got all these big games this week. Next week we got the Loretto County tournament. So
yeah,
I'm really looking forward to seeing how this week plays out.
Hopefully we'll have a big announcement pertaining to that county tournament. Maybe
hopefully
we can share some good news next week.
Next week we look forward to welcoming Scott Jones
It'll be fun
on the show to to talk about the Lauderdale County tournament. And we look forward to these games, but also next week on it'll be week 7 for us. We skipped a few during the holidays.
Yeah.
So we're excited and look forward to talking with you then next week on the Shoals Triple Threat Podcast.